Hasta la vista, Megan. What's going on, everybody, and welcome to my review of Megan 2.0. This is the much anticipated sequel to what I would say was one of the more surprising hits of 2023, Megan. I myself was a pretty big enjoyer of that movie. I think it was a ton of fun, and it was a bright spot in the time of year that it came out, where we typically see the worst of what the genre of horror has to offer. Now, essentially, was it just a better remake of Child's Play than the actual remake of Child's Play was? Yes, it was. But I think in it, Megan proved to be a entertaining enough character that can carry a movie regardless of its rehashed plot. Upon its release and reception, she immediately became a pop culture sensation, and so it was no surprise that Blumhouse almost immediately greenlit a sequel and is now looking to turn Megan into one of its flagship film franchises. I have had my fair share of issues with Blumhouse as a production company, but the decision to really commit to Megan, I feel, was a no-brainer. And being that I did enjoy the first film so much, I was really excited for the forthcoming sequel. But once the marketing campaign started for Megan 2.0 and trailers started dropping, it became very clear that this sequel was going to be taking the budding franchise into a very different direction. From what I and many others could tell, it seemed like they were really abandoning the horror elements from that first movie and putting more of a focus on the action and sci-fi aspects of it. The basic premise here is that using the original Megan tech, a government-funded defense spy robot, Amelia, was created and now has gone rogue with aims of triggering the fall of mankind. And the only chance there is at stopping her is for Megan's original creator, Gemma, to literally and figuratively resurrect Megan from the dead. Now, on the surface, I do not inherently hate or reject the idea of a sequel making drastic changes. If anything, I admire and respect the boldness. However, I have to be honest with myself and understand that I am a horror fan, and I liked the first Megan as a slasher horror type movie. And so to see all of that get stripped out for its sequel, it significantly lowered my excitement level for Megan 2.0. Add on top of that I have absolutely zero trust in anything attached to Blumhouse to properly navigate this drastic change in direction, so I couldn't help but feel anything other than, at best, pessimistic as I was walking into the movie theater. But I'll be damned, against all of my skepticism, they actually pulled it off. And let me tell you right now, not only did I have a ton of fun with this movie, but I may actually prefer this to the first Megan. Now, could that just be recency bias speaking because I just saw this movie last night? Very possible, but at this very moment, it does not feel or sound that crazy to say. But before I get into the good that Megan 2.0 has to offer, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel as well for more movie reviews and content. I would love to have you here. Now let's get into the review. So starting with the positives, and I feel like there's no better place to start than with all of the big changes that were made. Just like the trailer suggested, the horror here is pretty much non-existent. Tonally, it's a lot sillier and more lighthearted. I would say genre-wise, action, comedy, and sci-fi are definitely more of a focus. And like I said, going into this movie, these were all things that I was very nervous about, but I think in their execution, they were able to make a seamless transition into this new form of Megan. On the comedy side of things, I think the movie hits at a very consistent rate. Obviously, Megan does a really good job at supplying a lot of laughs, but you also get quite a few really funny supporting character performances out of the likes of Brian Alvarez, Jermaine Clements, and Tim Sharp. And I feel like the jokes come at a very digestible pace. Given the silly nature of the movie, they could have easily gone super over the top, just pestering you with bit after bit going 1,000 miles an hour, which oftentimes end up being a strategy that results in a lot more misses than hits, but they don't do that. And even though there are a ton of jokes and quips and comedic situations taking place, I think they strike a nice balance and it fits in very cohesively with everything else that is going on. The area they were really able to surprise me in are the action sequences. Now, admittedly, I'm not the hardest person to please when it comes to action. It's not really my genre of expertise, but through my eyes, I thought there was a lot of badass stuff in here, specifically the hand-to-hand combat moments between Megan and Amelia, who is played fantastically by Ivania Sakno. She has shown before her action chops in the Disney Plus Star Wars series Ahsoka, but it seemed like she really upped her game for this, and the fight choreography that is put on display for her and Megan was really impressive and not something that I expected to see done at the quality that it is in this movie. Now, none of the things that I have talked about thus far are able to come together without the titular character bringing them together. Of course, Megan is the star of the show. She is once again flawlessly played by Jenna Davis and Amy Donald. And much like how everything else in this movie is changed in comparison to the first one, she is no exception. And I think for the better. In the first Megan, she is a full-on slasher villain, but that is no longer the case here for Megan 2.0. She's completely made the jump to action hero, but all of the things that made her that breakout star back in 2023 are still here. The sassy attitude, the dancing, the singing, it's all still very prevalent, and if anything, it's just amplified. It's just now done so in a more positive light. She's grown. She's had an arc. She's no longer the likable, murderous robot. She now only cares about protecting Katie from the threat that is Amelia. And even though we are told countless of times that this is only due to her programming, through her actions and efforts, you really do start to feel like she does have her own independent feelings and actually does care about Katie, except now it's done in a much healthier way rather than a I will kill anyone that looks at her kind of way. So yes, even though I am a massive slasher fan and I did enjoy that version of the character, I actually do prefer the version that we get here. She's more endearing and funnier, but she's also still able to maintain her edge and brutality through all of the action sequences that take place. And also, she doesn't kill any dogs in this movie, which I think is a great improvement for her. All of the changes that they make here, whether it be to the tone or the genre or the character of Megan herself, I think they do so very well, and it has me really excited to see where they take things from here. Even though a third film is not teased at the end of this one, surely Blumhouse is not planning on ending things here, and I think if this movie is the financial success that it will be, we will be seeing more Megan movies in the future. She is pretty much the TikTok generation's Chucky / Terminator, so I think Blumhouse would be foolish to not continue striking the iron while it's hot. Moving on to the negatives now, and I don't really have any huge criticisms for this movie, but there are some things that I feel were a little weak or things that I feel you guys might have an issue with that I do want to mention here. The first of those things is the story. It's nothing to write home about. Much like how the first Megan is just a rehash of the Child's Play remake, this one pulls a lot, if not just flat out copies, a lot of the plot from Terminator 2. You know, new bad robot shows up and the only way to stop it is for good guys to be saved by previously bad robot from prior film, now turned action hero. It is very familiar, and so that is going to bother some people more than others. Me personally, would I have liked to have seen them do a more original story? Sure, but I'm also not really into these movies for their story necessarily. I am more so a fan of the characters, and so even if the situation that these characters find themselves in is something that I have seen before, if they are still done really well, then I'm probably still going to enjoy the movie. And given that I was already able to look past a recycled plot for the first Megan, I think that made it even easier of a thing to forgive the second time around with Megan 2.0. However, there are some legitimate weak points to the story here, specifically in the latter half of the film where a lot of the bigger reveals get made and some new threats and motives are introduced, and it kind of makes the movie not as interesting or compelling as I felt it was when Amelia was the sole antagonist in focus. This section of the movie is also what I think contributes the most to what its overall biggest issue is, and that is that I think it's just a bit too long. This movie's coming in at about 20 minutes longer than the first Megan was, and I just don't think that it needed to be. The third act feels really stretched out. A lot of plot gets added here. There's this really long-winded villain exposition that you're not that invested in, and these are things that they either needed to do a better job setting up in the earlier parts of the movie or just cutting out altogether. It just doesn't feel as tight as the rest of the film did, and by no means would I describe any of it as awful. I do think that a less is more approach would have been really helpful here. The last thing I want to touch on here is that for most of the movie, I was relieved to see that they were erring more on the side of satire as opposed to commentary when it comes to the use of AI in the real world. But towards the end of the movie, again, talking about the third act, the commentary side started to become more prevalent and really ramped up and was honestly a little too heavy-handed for my liking. And look, I get it. AI is a very relevant and polarizing topic of discussion on the internet these days, but because of that, I can't go a single day without hearing something or seeing something about it. And so now I just find it to be something that is exhausting to digest in any way, shape, or form. So when the AI talk really started to ramp up, I couldn't help but give an eye roll or let out a sigh or two. This is a bit nitpicky though, and I do realize that, and some people won't even care about this little critique that I have for the movie. But for me personally, I do wish that they could have just kept it in the area of satire rather than trying to get a little too heavy-handed with the commentary towards the end of the movie. Megan 2.0 has taken me on quite the journey. I was initially very excited by its announcement, but that excitement quickly started to fade once the marketing made it clear that the horror was being completely gutted from this sequel. And so going into the theater, I was fully ready for my preconceived disappointment to come to fruition. But walking out of that same theater, I was left pleasantly surprised that I not only really liked the movie, but I may even prefer it to the first one, which was not on my list of possibilities. If you liked the first Megan, then I fully expect that you will enjoy Megan 2.0, and I definitely recommend you go check it out in theaters. But if what you liked about the first Megan is the slasher element, then you are going to have a steeper hill to climb. I know because I was in that camp, but I was able to come out on the other side of this movie having an absolute blast with it. So even if you have those concerns, I still strongly encourage you to give this movie a shot, give it a chance to change your mind, and you may just come out being surprised with it just like I was. But those are all of my thoughts on Megan 2.0. Make sure to get down in the comments below and tell me all of yours. Please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel as well for more movie reviews and content. And I will see everybody in my next one. Peace.